Hi guys, it's Miss Shavino. Today we're going to be learning about rhythm, and we're going to start it off with the rhythm pyramid. So at the very top, you'll see a little circle. That circle is called a whole note. Now a whole note gets 4 beats. When I say 4 beats, that equals 4 claps. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You would hold that note out for those 4 beats. So when you divide a whole note into two, you get 2 half notes. Now a half note by itself gets 2 beats. So this right here gets 2 beats. So it would be 1, 2. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2. See how that gets 2 beats. So if you have 2 half notes and you put them together, that's 4 beats. So that would equal that whole note up top. So if you divide a half note in half, you would get a quarter note. You get 2 quarter notes. A quarter note by itself is 1 beat. So if you have 1 quarter note and 1 quarter note, what's 1 plus 1? It's 2. You're right. So if you add 2 quarter notes together, you get 2 beats. And that's how you would get that half note up top. Now, if you divide a quarter note in half, you would get 2 eighth notes. And so an eighth note by itself, this little guy right here, he would equal a half a beat. So 2 halves together equal a whole. So that's how we get that whole quarter note right there. That is half a beat. So now another important thing to remember is when you start reading music, you see this little thing right here, a 4/4. Sometimes it'll change up a little bit, but it's called a time signature. A time signature tells you how many beats are in the measure and what note gets that beat. So the 4 on top, you see that 4 right there? That tells you that there's 4 beats in that measure. And the little 4 on the bottom tells you that the quarter note gets the beat. So 4 equals quarter note. So if you had a 3, say there's a 3 up here, that would mean there's 3 beats in the measure. And if you still had that 4, that would mean that the quarter note would still get the beat. So you would have about 3 quarter notes in your measure if you wanted. So let's move on. Putting it all together. So we have a 4/4 right here. So what does that tell us? That tells us that there's 4 beats in that measure and that the quarter note gets the beat. So in this measure, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter notes. So we would count it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you do that with me? I'll give you 4 beats and then we'll come in. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. How'd you do? All right, so let's move on to the next one. Do you see how this is a little different? We have a 3 on top now. So what does that 3 mean? That 3 means that you have 3 beats in that measure. Oh, but this 4 is still the same. So quarter note still gets the beat. So we first have a half note. Now a half note gets how many beats? It gets 2 beats. You're right. If you said 2 beats, you are correct. So we would count it like 1, and you'd have to listen for those 2 claps to go by to hold out that half note for its correct amount of beats. So the next one that we have is a quarter note. Now that quarter note, even though it does get 1 beat, it happens on the beat 3 in the measure. So it goes 1, 3. That's how you would count the rhythm on that one. So let's try that with me. Ready? I'll count you in. 1, 2, ready, breathe. 1, 3. Awesome job, guys. All right, so let's move on. What note is this? All right, has a little stem on it, a little circle underneath, and it's not filled in. You remember what that one is? What is that one called? If you said a half note, you're correct. Now let's move on to the next one. This one kind of looks like the half note, but there's not a little stem attached to it. What is this one called? If you said a whole note, you were also correct. Now this one kind of looks like the half note too, but this time it's filled in. What's the filled in one called? If you said a quarter note, you're correct. All right, so this next one, we didn't spend too much time on it. Let's see if you remember what it's called. What is this one called? If you said an eighth note, you are correct. Good job, guys. All right, so this next one, it looks a little the same, but we have to figure out how many beats do these notes get. How many beats do they get? So this half note, if you remember, this one's a half note. How many beats does a half note get? You said 2 beats. You are correct. That's awesome. All right, so let's move on to this whole note. It's a whole note. How many beats does a whole note get? 4 beats. You're so right. Good job, guys. All right, so this next one, this quarter note, how many beats does a quarter note get? It gets one beat. One beat. All right. So we have this eighth note here. We didn't talk too much about this eighth note. So if you remember, think about it. How many beats does an eighth note get? How many beats does an eighth note get? You said a half a beat. You are correct. Good job, guys. All right. Now let's see if you remember this. So we're going to try and count these rhythms. So we have a 2-4 right here in the first one. So that tells us we have 2 beats in the measure. So how would we count these 2 quarter notes? Think about it. You can try it yourself if you want. If you said 1, 2, you are totally correct. Good job. All right, so this next one, we have a 3-4. So what does that tell us about this measure? How many beats do we have? Think about it. If you said 3, you are right. All right, so now how would we count this? We have a half note. How many beats does a half note get? How many beats does a half note get? And then we have a quarter note. How long does a quarter note get? Think about it. How would you count it? If you said 1, 3, you are totally correct. And you see that this little 2 is in parentheses. That's because we don't say that note. We hold that out. So we go 1, 3. So you don't say that 2. You just think it in your head. So this next one, let's look at this next one. So we have a 4-4. So that tells us 4 beats in that measure. We have a quarter note, a half note, and a quarter note. Think about how you might count that. What do the beats happen on? So if you said 1, 2, 4, you are right. Good job. So you see how this 3 is in the parentheses? That's because we don't say that, because we hold that half note out for 2 whole beats. So 1, 2, 4. All right, good job, guys. Last little activity we have here is we're adding up these beats together. So we are going to add up a quarter note and a half note together. So a quarter note is how many beats plus a half note. How many beats is a half note? If you said 3 beats, you're correct. Good job, guys. All right, so now we have a whole note. How long is a whole note? Whole note is 4 beats. So, and then we add a half note, which is how many beats? 2 beats, so 4 plus 2. How many is that all together? That's 6 beats. Good job. All right, so now we're going to have a quarter note, which is how many beats? 1 beat, and then another quarter note, which is another beat. So 1 plus 1 is what? It's 2. Good job. All right, this is a hard one. We have 3 things to add up. So we have a whole note, which is 4 beats, a half note, which is 2 beats, and then a quarter note, which is 1 beat. So it's 4 plus 2 plus 1. Think about it. If you said 7, you're correct. Good job. All right. So now you're going to make your own beat, which is kind of like what we did in this little activity. So you can choose between a quarter note, a half note, and a whole note. Then you can use a time signature of 3-4, 4-4, or 2-4. And those tell you how many beats you can have in those measures. And you only need to do 1 measure. So then once you're done with that, I want you to videotape yourself doing it and copying it and saying it on a videotape. And then also you're going to make sure that Miss Trevino can see the rhythm that you wrote so I can make sure that you did it right. So then you're going to submit that to Google Classroom on the little assignment that you'll see there. All right, so I hope you had a great day. Thank you for learning about rhythm with me. I had so much fun. I hope you did. I'll see you next time. Bye.